If you are looking for a church to attend, I want to give you 5 things that I think you should look for as you find a good church to go to where you can worship with your family. Now, I've been in the ministry a little over 20 years now in the full-time pastoral ministry, and I've seen people come to churches and leave churches for so many reasons. Sometimes they don't really even have a reason, but I think this needs to be a calculated process. Why are you going to go to the church that you're going to go to? Now, you don't really find in the Bible a passage that says how to find a church. It's just not there. And I think part of the reason for that is that church life seems to be very different now than it was in the first century, because now we have, church literally just about on every corner and every kind of flavor and, everything you want. If you get mad at this one, you can go to that one. But in the early church, they had the body of believers. And man, when they were meeting, that's where they wanted to go. And they had divided up into who's got the most programs and all these kind of things. And so today we kind of look for churches that cater to our whims. And to a degree, that's not always bad. But I think there are 5 things we really need to look at as we look for a church. But before we do that, maybe you're in the situation where you're thinking about leaving a church. And I'm not going to go into detail in this video, but maybe some of the things that would cause you to look for a church would help you to inform your decision on if you should leave a church. But there are a few good reasons to leave a church. One is obviously you move away, right? You just don't live there anymore. And you need to find a church where you are. Today you can attend online, you can give online, but you got to be there with a body of believers. You have to actually go to be with them. So you move away. Another reason is doctrine, which is probably the primary reason. If they stop teaching correct doctrine, you need to leave. If you can't make any changes to it, you need to leave. You need to get out of there. Both of those, I think, are pretty clear. But there's another reason that might work, and we have to be very careful with this, and that is that there is another place that you could grow and serve better. Now, we have to be really careful with this because sometimes we think, I'm just tired of this. I want to go, and do something else. But this has to be we have to approach this very carefully. The thing I think we need to go to before I actually give you the 5 things to look for in a church is this passage, because we need to understand what the church is. This is Acts chapter 2, verse 41 and 42. It says, then those who gladly received his word, this was on the day of Pentecost, were baptized. And that day, about 3,000 souls were added to them, and they continued steadfastly in the apostles' doctrine and fellowship, in the breaking of bread and in prayers. That is what the church was supposed to be doing. They would teach, they would have fellowship, and they would break bread. That's in the Lord's Supper and its other kinds of fellowship. And they would pray together. So those are the things that we're supposed to be looking for in a church. So now the 5 things. If you're looking for a church and you say, help me out, I want to know what to look for, okay? Number one, doctrine. This is numero uno. I don't care what else they have. If their doctrine isn't right, you pass it by and you look for something else. They have to have good doctrine. Now, you might say, how much do I need to agree on doctrine? Well, that depends. There are some doctrinal stances that are more important than others. There are some things you cannot waver on, like biblical inerrancy and biblical sufficiency. The doctrine of Jesus, salvation by God's grace through faith. And there are other things that are very big. Like if you're a Calvinist, you probably want to join a Calvinist church. If you're a non-Calvinist, this is a pretty big issue. You probably want to find a church that's not Calvinistic, and those kind of things like that, right? Now, obviously, I have my opinion on what they should be, but you need to find a church that fits in with your doctrine because they're going to be teaching you. And sometimes you might just sit and listen to things and not really understand the doctrinal stance from which they're coming. And so you need to find one that you want to teach you correctly and that you want to teach your children correctly. Look at their doctrine. And if there's something that varies from what you believe, obviously you can look at it and say, am I right or am I wrong on this? But you have to say, is this something that I don't mind my kids hearing? Is this something I can bring new believers into and I'm okay with what they're going to hear? And along with this, when you attend a service at a church that you're kind of checking out, to use it for lack of a better term, do you learn anything? Do you learn anything, or do you just walk out feeling invigorated and excited and happy? You need to learn in church. If you can go week after week and not actually learn anything, that church is not doing their job. Obviously, the pastor is a big part of choosing a church, so you want to look at him. Can I respect him? Can I learn anything from him? So, it's not all about him, but he's going to be the primary teacher and the pastor. So when we think about the doctrine, eventually or ultimately, it actually comes from the pastor. So you want to check him out. Doctrine is the most important thing. Okay. If you can't check that one off, don't even go down the list. So number one is doctrine. Number two is the mission of the church. What is that particular church trying to do? One thing that you can ask the pastor, ask elders, whoever, say, how do you envision your church services? What are they for? Some churches will say our services are primarily evangelistic. They're primarily geared toward seeing people come to know God. Well, the problem with that, sometimes you get to be very shallow. On the other side, you have churches that say, well, our job is to just build the believers. And that's great too. And I think the truth is somewhere in between. Primarily, church is for building believers so they can go out and do the evangelization, but you got to have some of that on Sunday morning too. So you need to think of where you are and can you buy into it? What is the vision for the church? What is their goal? Here at Eastlake, our goal is to glorify God by developing disciples who are trained, edifying, accountable, and reproducing. And so what is the mission statement of the church that you're looking at, and how are they actually accomplishing that mission? Can you go the direction they want to go? How can two people walk together unless they're agreed? So number one, doctrine. Number two, mission of the church. Number three, what are the opportunities to serve? I did not say what are the opportunities to be served, but what are the opportunities to serve? If I get involved in this church, what can I do? Are there ways that I can use my talents, that I can use my abilities there? Every member should be doing something. Everyone should be serving. Sorry, I didn't turn off my phone there. So every person should be doing something. Everyone should have opportunities to serve. So the question is, the church that you're in right now, are you serving in it? How are you doing on that? I think we need to consider that. So doctrine, the mission of the church, opportunities to serve, and then fellowship. Fellowship. Do the people in that church get along? This is such an important thing because it's hard to have mutual encouragement in a church when everybody hates each other, right? You want people to get along. You want them to love each other. Do people get along in the church? And then number 5 is worship style. Worship style. Now, I put this way down at the bottom of the list for a reason. The reason is that usually it's at the top of our list. We think, do I enjoy the worship in that church? Do I go there? Do I feel excited? Do I feel invigorated? It should be way down the list because you can worship in any kind of a church if the doctrine is right. You can worship because worship is just attributing to God the worthy and glory that he desires, that he is worthy of. And so you can do that anywhere. So there is some preference here, right? And you might have different opinion about what is good worship. Worship really is going out and living what you're supposed to do. But when you're in the service, what kind of music do you like? I mean, do you like something that's calm, or do you like an organ type of music, or do you like, the drums and the lights and the whole deal? And it's not so much what you like, but what is it that best brings you into the presence of God? When you listen to the words that are being sung and that you're singing, does it help you to glorify God? Does it encourage you to then to go out and live better for him? Last year when our family went on vacation, I went vacation 2 times and visited 2 different churches in different areas. And I enjoyed them. I enjoyed the worship part of them. I enjoyed the song part of them. I hate to say the worship part because it's all supposed to be worship, right? But I enjoyed the music part of them, but one I enjoyed more than the other. The one that we went to, it was up in Wisconsin, and they actually sang a song that I had not heard before, but it was so doctrinally based that I went and I found it, and now we're using it in our church. I gave it to our worship director and said, hey, we need to do this song, right? Because it was so great. I just felt like they were teaching something through the music. The other church we went to, it was fun to listen to the music, but I almost felt like it was more of a show on stage. Like they were just all about themselves. And I wasn't very impressed with that. So you need to find the kind of church that will help draw you into the presence of God, that will help teach you even through the music, through what we call worship. When you get together with that group, do you get focused on God? Do you get focused on God? So let me give you, again, our 5 things to check out in a church. Number 1 is doctrine. Number 2 is the mission of the church. Number 3, opportunities to serve. How, by the way, often we think, well, I want to find a church that's got everything. Maybe if I can plug it in and plug into it. Maybe a better thing is, this church doesn't have it. How can I do it? How can I start it? What can I do to get going? What a blessing for that church. Opportunities to serve, fellowship. Can I get along with these people? And then worship style. Ultimately, it comes down to this. We shouldn't just join churches because we enjoy it. You join a church because this is an opportunity for you to learn and teach others, worship God better, and become a better disciple of Jesus Christ so you can then go out and live for him later. Well, those are the 5 things that I wanted to give you about how to find a church. Maybe you have some others. Put them in the comments. I'd love to hear them. Other people might like to see them too. And maybe I'll do an update one day if we get a lot of other great ideas. God bless you guys. I'll see you next time.